They will change the filter, and they also dispose the filter. Kita tak boleh buang macam tu sajalah. Okay. And then low temperature. So cold temperature, as we know, cold temperature, it will retard the growth of the microorganisms. So what happened? They will slow the rate of the enzyme control reaction. So usually enzyme, if the bacteria is mesophilic, so selalu enzyme ni 37 lah, okay? So we use refrigeration to prevent the food spoilage. So we also can use freezing, freeze drying to preserve the food. Okay. So, but this method does not achieve the sterilization. Dia cuma kalau macam refrigerator tu dia macam apa, retard the microbial growth lah, tapi tak bunuh, they not kill the microorganisms. So freezing usually kita ada freezer dalam lab minus 20, minus 80 pun ada, minus 80, minus 70. So it does not sterilize, only they will make the longer storage time limit. So dia contohnya food yang you letak dekat freezer dengan yang dekat chiller kan lain kan. So chiller 3 hari je you kena discard lah. Walaupun you rasa-rasa tu macam okay lagi kan, tapi tak tahu dalam tu, okay. But if you keep the food in the freezer, so sometimes 3 bulan pun you still boleh thaw dia, and then you boleh panaskan dia ke microwave dia, so you still boleh makan dia, okay. So yang ni nanti kalau you ada masa you boleh tengoklah Dirty Ice. So okay, dia video tentang apa, dia buat eksperimen lah tengah ais yang dekat kedai-kedai tu kan, kita nampak macam okey je kan, macam bersih je, tapi sebenarnya dia adalah banyak bakteria, fungus kat situ, okay. Ini boleh tengok nanti. And then high pressure desiccation and also osmotic pressure. So high pressure in liquid, they will denature the bacterial protein and preserve flavor. So kita panggil dia HPP, high pressure processing. Desiccation, so ini dry lah. So ini kita ada dalam lab selalu desiccator kan. So it prevent the metabolism. So in the absence of the water, so microorganism cannot grow. But dia still ada, remain viable. Maksud dia macam dormant lah waktu tu, okay. However, virus endospore and endospore, they resist the desiccation because dia sangat resistant. Endospores ni extreme temperature ke extreme environment, they resist the environment tu. Dia boleh lah, okay. And osmotic pressure, they can cause plasmolysis. So macam loss of water, water keluar lah daripada sel, okay. So this plasmolysis can lead to the cell death. So the use of sugars, for example, in jelly, jam kan kita bila prepare, kita buat jam tu kan, strawberry jam, so kita banyak guna sugar kan. And also we use salt in curing the meat. So kalau macam kita nak preserve meat kan, so ataupun buat pickles, siapa yang suka makan pickles kan. So it will plasmolyze most of the microorganism presents in the food and prevent the growth of the new organisms. That's why we use the sugars and salt to preserve the food. But not all the microbes you can some of the microbes, for example, halophilic organisms. So halophilic microbe, they can survive. They survive in high salinity or high sodium chloride. So they can thrive in this condition. And these halophilic microbes, they can cause spoilage. Okay, certain tu dia akan certain halophilic tu they still can cause the spoilage in the food. Okay. And next is ionizing radiation. So here we have 4 general types of radiation. For example, UV, ultraviolet light, ionizing radiation, microwave radiation, and also strong visible light. So we can use this to control the microorganism and also preserve the food. Okay, sebab kan kita ada student food kan yang belajar ni juga. So application is also in the food tech. So for X-ray, so commonly use cobalt 60 radioisotope. So the bacteria that sensitive to this ionizing radiation is, for example, Salmonella and Pseudomonas. Usually we will use this ionizing radiation if our product or our sample is heat sensitive, so we cannot use the dry heat or moist heat, autoclave, for example. So if the sample is drugs, antibiotics, vitamin, herbs, so we can use this ionizing radiation. Okay. So these are the examples of the ionizing radiation. Itu you boleh tengok lah. Okay. Then non-ionizing radiation, UV. So ni contoh plate tu kan, plate tu yang the effect of UV radiation. So dia buat bentuk yang V lah, yang bahagian tu je yang kena UV. So yang tepi-tepi dia still grow, dia serratia. Yang you buat dalam lab tu kan warna merah, dia merah-merah sikit lah. Okay. The V shape and on the plate is exposed to the UV. Okay, so dia matilah, cells or the serratia tu dia mati. Yang mana yang kena UV tu. Okay. Yang lain tu hidup lagi, yang you tengok color ni. Ada color. So most effective wavelengths that can kill the microbe is approximately 260 nanometer. So this UV will kill the microbes by damaging the DNA and protein. That's why if you want to do your lab work kan, contohnya, so you ada biosafety cabinet, so you akan UV dulu 15 minutes. Okay. But be careful if you switch on the UV, contohnya kan macam UV yang colour biru tu nanti, so make sure you keluar lah daripada bilik tu. So contohnya waktu saya buat PhD dulu, ada lab mate saya, dia student chemistry lah, so dia tak biasa dengan microbe, tapi ada part of the research tu ada culture microbe lah. So dia switch on the UV lamp tu dalam bilik biosafety tu. Dia bukan dalam biosafety cabinet, dalam bilik tu. Usually we will switch on this lamp before kita before, bukan before, after kita buat kerja tu kita akan switch on and then kita keluar, tapi dia still duduk dalam tu sebab dia tak tahu kan, so dia just on je. So apa jadi lepas 2 jam dia buat kerja tu, muka dia merah macam apa, macam terbakar tu, macam yang udang terbakar tu. So itu adalah kesan daripada UV lah. Bahaya juga bahaya dia. Tapi dia tak tahu masa tu. Kita orang perasan pun sebab muka dia macam merah lah. So UV can damage the eyes and also burn skin. So dia punya kulit tu dah burn lah waktu tu. Okay. So bahaya. So be careful lah bila you buat lab work nanti. Okay. So and then next is non-ionizing radiation, which is a microwave. So indirect killing of bacteria through the heat. Okay. So end of part 1. Kita ada banyak lah part yang ini. Agak banyak. So okay ke setakat ni? Boleh lagi ke?
Boleh.
Boleh. So kalau you, okay. Kenapa Melissa angkat tangan tadi? Oh, dia salah nak buat tu. So kalau you ada soalan, you boleh tanyalah, okay? Sorry lah, saya tak siap batuk. Kejap ya, saya minum air kejap. Okay, kita sambung. Sorry, batuk pula. So chemicals method of microbial control. So these are the examples of chemical methods yang saya percaya you all ada guna lah. Okay. So contohnya you mandi guna Dettol, lagi apa? Banyaklah brand kan. So dia claim kill 99% of bacteria kan. So you rasa betul ke dia can kill kalau you guna sebagai body wash tu?
Tak.
Macam mana? Tak, okay. Tak, okay. Dia tak adalah 99% yang tu kan. Sebab adalah student FYP pernah buat juga, dia tak ada sampai lah 99% tu. Okay. Tapi maybe dia test tu different lah. Contohnya bakteria ada strain berbeza ke apa. Okay. Tapi certain orang dia akan sensitif. Okay. Bila dia guna yang apa macam jenama-jenama ni lah, Dettol ke Protect ke yang kill yang 99%. So it depends lah. Kalau kadang dia boleh menyebabkan kulit you sangat kering. Okay. So chemical methods of microbial control. So we use these chemicals to control the growth of microbes. Okay, on living tissue. So kat luar lah antiseptic and inanimate object. So yang tadi non-living object lah as the disinfectant. So most of them only reduce microbial population. So dia just macam kurangkanlah population to the safe level. Dia tak kill lah selalunya. Okay. So here the effectiveness of the chemical agent is affected by the concentration, organic matter, pH, time, and also temperature. Okay. That means the death of organisms is affected by the length of time. Contohnya of the organisms exposed to the antimicrobial agent. Okay. So therefore, adequate time should always be allowed for an agent to kill the maximum number of microbes. So contohnya concentration of disinfectant, high concentration may kill the bacteria. However, lower concentration, they just inhibit the growth of the bacteria. So pH, the acidic pH contohnya, and also the time. So disinfectant regulated by Environment Protection Agency, and also antiseptic, so they regulated by the FDA. So selalu saya percaya you selalu dengar lah FDA kan, Food and Drug Administration. So here we will evaluate the effectiveness of the chemical agent. So contohnya you you kerja untuk dekat company lah, yang buat eksperimen ataupun buat produk tentang sabun kan, certain sabun lah. So selalunya dia akan guna method ni. So to evaluate the effectiveness of the chemical agent, for example. So nama dia, the name of this method is use dilution test. Okay. So here we want to compare the effectiveness of the disinfectant agent, especially the new one that come on the market kan. So kita nak compare, sebelum kita buat kalau kita akan compare kan, kita belilah brand ni kan. So you boleh guna method ni lah. Okay, use dilution test. So usually this test use the standard preparation of the certain test bacteria. So the broth culture of the bacteria. So you boleh pilih lah contoh bakteria apa, Staph aureus or Pseudomonas aeruginosa. So a broth culture of one of these bacteria is coated onto the small stainless steel cylinder. Okay, and allowed to dry. So you boleh itulah metal ring tu dipkan dalam, you rendam dalam test bakteria. So you keringkan pula. So each cylinder is then dipped into one of several dilution. So you akan ada different dilution lah. Okay. So for the 10 minutes at 20 degrees. So and then rinse are transferred to culture media. So dalam plate lah, you letak dalam plate tu to determine whether the bacteria survive the treatment. Okay. So disinfectant agent that prevent the growth at the greatest dilution are considered the most effective. So yang mana boleh prevent growth of the microbes lah. Okay. Dia yang sangat efektif. So usually the microbiologists, they will feel that this measurement, this method is more meaningful than the phenol coefficient. So selalunya kita akan guna ni lah untuk kita check the effectiveness of the certain chemical ni. Okay. And then next is this diffusion method. So ini method yang sangat famous bila you buat FYP. So selalunya lab kita available test ni lah, dan dia agak mudah dan cepat untuk dibuat lah. But cepat pun you need 3 days minimum. Okay, first day you will prepare the broth culture. So you grow you punya bacteria, Staph aureus ke, E. coli. So you grow. The next day you will swab the bacteria on the Mueller Hinton agar. So selalunya kita boleh guna different agar lah. So contohnya kalau bakteria kita boleh guna Mueller Hinton agar. So you swab sampai rata atas plate tu. And then you prepare the dish. So you boleh pipettekan you punya antimicrobial agent atau you punya sample on the dish. Ataupun you rendamkan pun boleh. Kita ada banyak method lah. And then you place on the agar. Okay. So contoh sampel yang Sam ni student saya buat adalah fungus lah, isolated from the tongkat ali, fungus from the menterbang, dia macam herbs lah, pokok-pokok herbs. So and then apa lagi buat? Student saya buat Roselle. Roselle is the macam sanitize lah, macam dia nak buat produk. So dia campurkan extract Roselle dengan extract kalau tak salah saya apa yang bunga telang tu, bunga telang. So dia nak boleh kill tak bakteria. Contohnya atas meja bila dia spray tu kan. So before that dia buat ni test ni dululah, dia boleh kill tak bakteria tu, okay? So dalam on this dish ni you boleh letak your sample. Contohnya kat sini dia guna chlorine, quartz. So and you also need to have the positive control. Contohnya sebagai control lah, kalau you ada sample plants, contohnya roselle tadi kan, you mesti ada guna antibiotik. Yang contohnya chloramphenicol ke cipro ke, antibiotik that can kill the microbe yang bakteria yang you swab tu. So nanti kita boleh tengok lah dia akan bagi result. So then we will compare with the zone inhibition from our sample. So kita akan compare sama ada kita punya sample tu effect ada tak antimicrobial effect on the bacteria, boleh tak dia kill bakteria tu, okay? So this method to evaluate the efficiency of the chemical reagent. So you boleh gunalah different bacteria, you boleh test nanti, okay? So before growth, so you akan ada antibiotic this. So this is we known as the positive control. So and then you punya sample contohnya, and then you will measure the zone of inhibition. So selalunya positive control mesti ada zone. Kalau positive control dia antibiotik ni tak ada zone, you punya assay tak valid lah, okay? So and then bacteria growth, so you akan ada sample ni, okay? So you measure lah dia punya zone inhibition. So sama ada dia ada antimicrobial activity ataupun okay. Next is phenol, types of disinfectants, okay? Phenols. So this is the derivative called phenolic that can disrupt the cell membrane. So this chemical can disrupt the cell membrane, denature protein, and also inactivate the enzyme. Okay. Usually they use to disinfect the surface and to destroy the discarded culture. So selalu kita, sebelum kita buang discard culture tu, kita boleh guna ni lah, phenol ni, okay? So the advantages is stable for long period and good for disinfecting the saliva, feces, the sample lah yang selalu contaminated with the bacteria ataupun yang ada bakteria. So we have two phenolic groups, triclosan and also hexachlorophene. So ini contoh dia lah yang chemicals that used in the soap, toothpaste and also plastic kitchenware. So broad spectrum tu they can kill the wide spectrum of the bacteria. Contohnya dia boleh bunuh lebih banyak bakteria compared to other chemical. So kita panggil dia broad spectrum lah. Okay. And the second one they use in the as a detergent cleanser. Okay. So halogen, yang tadi phenol, yang ni halogen ni ada belajar macam chemistry sikit-sikit lah ya. So chlorine selalu you guna apa? Contohnya Clorox kan, Clorox, okay. So kita kalau you ada guna tips ke apa, selalu kita akan rendam dalam Clorox lah. Okay. So it also broad spectrum. So contohnya chlorine, so selalu guna dalam pool, drinking water, iodine yang to treat your wound kan selalu. And then alcohol, isopropyl alcohol atau ethanol. So sebelum ada nurse selalu inject kita kan, dia akan ataupun ambil darah kita, dia akan sapulah guna tu, okay kan? Alcohol, okay? So alcohol, they will denature the protein, dissolve lipid and also membrane when mixed with the water. That's why we need to add the water. Kita tak boleh guna 99%, okay? When mixed with water, alcohol will denature the protein, okay? They also lipid solvent and also dissolve the membrane. So this isopropyl alcohol or ethanol can be used as the skin antiseptic yang tadi tu. Contohnya sebelum injection kan. So however, alcohol disinfect, only disinfect. Dia akan disinfect dia but does not sterilize the skin because the alcohol will evaporate quickly. Okay, dia akan cepat evaporate lah. And then ni contoh-contoh yang alcohol swab kan, kita boleh beli daripada farmasi selalu sebelum, atau yang buat injection ada yang apa, orang ambil ubat sendiri kan, so selalu dia akan swab sendiri, swab lah sebelum buat inject. Okay, so ni yang saya kata tadi lah. Aqueous ethanol, so used as a disinfectant. So selalu kita tak guna 99% ke apa, okay? And then next is heavy metals. So for example, mercury, copper, silver and also zinc. So you boleh baca lah dekat sini dia gunakan apa untuk antiseptic for eyes of newborn. So selalunya baby yang baru lahir dia akan ada masalah atau infection dekat mata selalunya, okay? So dia selalu guna ni lah, silver ni. And then surface active ingredients or known as the surfactant. Kalau you pernah dengar surfactant. So soap and detergent, they can remove the microbes. So and then oily substance and also dirt. Okay. So we have here acid anionic detergent and also quaternary ammonium compound or cationic detergent. Okay. So acid anionic detergent, it only sanitizing. Okay. And so for the cationic detergent, it is strongly bactericidal. Tadi yang saya kata bactericidal, dia can kill the microbes. Okay. So yang ni boleh tengok degerming, the effect dia, sanitizing. So kalau sabun tu dia apa effect dia. And then cationic detergent, apa dia, bactericidal by denature the protein of the bacteria and also disrupt the plasma membrane. And then in the food tech kan, usually they use chemicals to preserve the food. Yang tadi chemicals untuk macam sabun kan, luaran kan. So this one is chemical for the food preservative. So usually we use the parabens kan. So pernah dengar kan dalam kosmetik, selalunya shampoo lah. Shampoo mesti ada. Mana-mana yang tak guna ni selalunya dia lebih mahal lah. Kalau you perasan, dia lebih yang organik tu dia mahal. Okay, produk tu. And then sodium nitrate and nitrate, so used in meat product. So contohnya hot dog, sausage kan, dia banyak lah benda ni. So actually benda-benda chemicals yang ni untuk preserve tak baik lah untuk badan kita. Tapi selalunya macam mana kita still ambil juga kan, macam fast food semua kan, yang sausage semua. Okay. Aldehyde and chemicals sterilant. And then so this agent disrupt the structure of protein and also nucleic acid. Okay. So these are the examples of the chemical glutaraldehyde, formaldehyde, kan? And also antibiotics. Aldehyde, the chemical sterilant is a heat sensitive material. So contohnya ethylene oxide. So they will denature the protein, inhibit the vital cellular function. Okay. So and next is chlorine dioxide. So kita ada ethylene oxide and chlorine dioxide. And next is luminous gas with free radicals that can destroy the microbe. So usually we use this method for tubular instruments, hand. Okay, so how they will kill the bacteria by damaging the microbial DNA. They akan damage the DNA of the bacteria. Okay. However, it's not harmful to human tissue. Okay, dia selamatlah to the human tissue. So this is good for sterilizing plastic surgical instrument. Okay. So contohnya kalau kita nak sterilizekan surgical instrument tu, kita akan guna ni lah. Okay. Plasma. So you boleh buka YouTube ni nanti untuk watch the ni lah contoh-contoh ni, how they use this as a sterilizing method. So saya bagi link je lah, nanti kalau tengok kat sini macam lama pula kan. So hydrogen peroxide. So saya percaya you all pun pernah biasa dengar tentang ni, hydrogen peroxide. Sorry. So they disrupt the disulfide bond in the protein. Okay. So therefore disrupt the structure of the membrane and also a structure of the protein. So it is good for non-living object. For example, packaging for food industry, the container that used for in the food industry. Okay. And then so you boleh tengok kat sini effectiveness dia, summary dia lah, of chemical antimicrobial against the endospores and also mycobacteria. So kalau iodine apa, contohnya alcohol against the endospores. So selalunya kalau endospores tu dia agak susah lah untuk kita kill dia. Okay. But you can use the all of this chemical for the mycobacteria. So yang ni boleh tengok the most resistant and the least resistant. So endospores tu dekat atas jugalah dia punya rank dia. Okay. So why gram negative bacteria more resistant than gram positive bacteria? Gram negative, kenapa dia more resistant to gram positive bacteria? Because they have the outer membrane. So gram positive ada tak outer membrane? Gram positive gram positive. Ada tak? Afrah amani, gram positive bacteria ada tak outer membrane? Ada afrah amani. Ada. Nurul Adilah. semua dah tak ada. Siapa boleh jawab? Gram positif dia ada ke? Oh ada, dia jawab Afrah Amani. Gram positif ada. Betul ke gram positif bakteria ada outer membrane? Ingat lagi
Tak
tak?
ada.
Tak ada. Kan ada buat gram staining kan? Gram staining yang kita belajar tu gram chapter 2 dulu, awal-awal dulu. Okay? Gram positif bakteria dia ada thin ke thick peptidoglycan layer?
Thick.
Thick peptidoglycan layer, thick, tapi they don't have the outer membrane. That's why gram-negative bacteria more resistant than gram-positive bacteria. So selalunya dia akan resistant lah. Kalau you buat essay pun, selalu kita boleh, hipotesis kita adalah mana-mana yang gram-negative tu, dia more resistant because they have the outer membrane that serve as the additional barrier to the bacteria. Okay. So you boleh tengok semula nanti dia ada thick kalau tu thin peptidoglycan layer gram negatif, tapi dia ada outer membrane dia. Okay. Mycobacteria, endospores and protozoan cysts very resistant to disinfectant and antiseptic. So selalunya endospores lah memang sangat susah. Okay, sebab dia resistant. Sebab itulah bakteria produce endospores. Sebab yang untuk dia reproduce kan, bila extreme environment ke apa, this endospores still can survive. So when bila dia jumpa yang environment yang sesuai with the nutrient, dia akan growth yang baru. Okay. And then non-enveloped virus are less resistant than enveloped virus to disinfectant and antiseptic. And prions are resistant to disinfectant and autoclaving. Okay. So sebenarnya cell wall tu tadi akan mempengaruhi lah, okay? Cell wall of the gram-positive bacteria, they have thicker peptidoglycan layer but more permeable and lacks of the protective outer membrane than the gram-negative bacteria, okay? Therefore, gram-negative more resistant than the gram-positive. So selalu kat mana-mana yang senang yang tu kita panggil dia gram-positive bacteria tu more susceptible to certain the disinfectant. Okay. So dia susceptible, yang tu resistant. Okay. Okay, itu saja. That's all for today's punya topik. So ada soalan ke?
Tak ada, doktor.
Okay, so ini last topik kita lah untuk ni. Nanti next tu kalau kita ada masa kita akan buat revision lah, okay, next week ataupun next 2 weeks ke, okay, before your final test. Okay, final test chapter 5 sampai 8, okay. Itu nanti saya akan inform lah semula, okay. So you relax dulu. So boleh baca dulu semua nanti. Nanti bila next class kita ada soalan ke, kita boleh tanyalah, okay. Tapi kita dah habis lah kita punya syllabus, okay. So that's all for today's lecture. So next class ke sebab saya ada yang pergi conference juga, so nanti saya akan inform semula lah. So maybe untuk buat revision dan saya akan share nantilah markah you all bila saya dah siap marking, okay, markah test 1 nanti, okay. So that's all for today lecture. Thank you join lecture hari ini. So we end our lecture today with tasbih kafarah and suratul Ans.
Doktor nak tanya.
Ya, apa dia?
Final test MCQ ke ada essay ke MCQ?
MCQ dan ada short essay, macam structured lah, macam contohnya 4 markah soalan dia macam tu, 6.
Oh, okay.
Campur. Okay. Dia bukan semua MCQ. Dia ada short essay ataupun short structure kita panggil. Okay. So dah boleh ready lah baca-baca sebab nanti test kita akan diadakan pada week 14 lah. Sebab macam saya kata sebelum ni awal-awal kelas kan, nanti akan banyak sangat test waktu tu. So better you prepare awal, okay? So nanti remind saya juga untuk book DK Delta lah yang besar sikit untuk you punya final test, okay? Thank you and Assalamualaikum. Sorry hari ni saya
Waalaikumsalam.
batuk lah.
Thank you, doktor.
Okay. Welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you,
doktor.
doktor.
Terima kasih.
Thank you,
Thank you,
doktor.
Thank you, doktor.
Doktor, bila boleh dapat markah
Ya.
test 1?
Oh, saya tak siap marking lagi. Nanti bila dah siap saya inform ya. Sebelum week 14 lah. Okay?
Oh, okey.
Boleh ke?
Okey doktor,
Siapa
terima
tadi yang
kasih.
tanya? Okay, welcome.
Hmm.
Terima kasih, doktor. Saya doktor.
Ha? Awak yang tanya tadi bila? Sebelum week 14.